We have two disclaimers to make. One, we do not own copyrights to any music that we've made use of in this documentary. The producers of the music own them. Two, this documentary does not glorify or criticize law school. It just projects it.
National Law School of India, University Bangalore brought about a paradigm shift in legal education. And today, if you would like to search for an institution where you have intellectually stimulating, socially relevant and professionally competent legal education that's being imparted, in one voice people would say it is the National Law School of India, University Bangalore. This has been possible because of the incessant efforts that were made by my worthy predecessors, among whom mention must be made of all my preceding Vice Chancellors, Professor N.R. Madhavamenon, the founder director of National Law School of India, University Bangalore, Professor N.L. Mitra, Professor Mohan Gopal, Professor J. Govind. They have contributed their best to keep National Law School of India University at the top. If you make a mention of the best moot courts in the world, you will find that National Law School has figured among the winners. Look at Jesuit Memorial Moot Court, National Law School Bangalore has won it. Look at Manfred Lachs Moot Court, National Law School has won it. Look at the prestigious scholarships like Rhodes, Inlax Foundation, Clarendon, National Law School alumni would be invariably among them. This has been possible because of the excellent teamwork that had been displayed all through these 25 years. And 2012 is a very significant year because National Law School of India University is 25 years young today.
I would say that we started off with a dream. In the process we evolved with this curriculum and we changed ourselves, and that's important because we are all trained in a different system in which law teaching means you go to the class and lecture for an hour. Those who want to attend will attend and others will not, and then finally take an examination. But our concept was totally different. We said that we will take live legal problems, social problems to the classroom. It may be from the current today's newspaper. It can be a report of a committee. And then we will try to generate interest in the students to look at it from different perspectives.
To look into Article 21 of the Constitution, it says, no person shall be deprived of life or personal liberty except according to the procedure established by law. So basically, Article 21 deals with deprivation of life and personal liberty. Now, deprivation of personal liberty, life or personal liberty can take place under two circumstances, broadly.
And Adam Smith says that when that huge investment is necessary, necessarily you have to tap the public savings. And corporate law has provided a very convenient device whereby you can tap the public savings.
You have this much amount of labor, let's say OL1 being allocated to the manufacturing sector, right? And therefore, the remaining amount of labor right up to OL1 is being used by the food sector, okay? This much amount for manufacturers and this much amount for food. That's the allocation of labor.
I don't know how I'm gonna tell you. I can't play with you no more. I don't know how I'm gonna do what Mama told me. My friend, the boy next door. I can't believe what people saying. You're gonna let your hair hang down. I'm satisfied to sit here working all day long. You're in the dark side of town.
Law school has, over the ages, in its own way, meant various things to various sets of people. We start off by eliciting the views of Mr. Aditya Sondhi, a reputed litigator and a proud alumnus of this institution.
Many of us joined the National Law School in the early 90s, not quite sure what we were getting into. And the reason for that is that law was hardly the first choice career as it has now become. In the old days, one tended to get into law either if one belonged to a legal family or otherwise didn't get admission in any other professional course. So it was more medicine and engineering and so on that was the preferred option for those wanting to get into the professions. So I would say my hats off to Dr. Menon and the others who were involved in the establishment of the National Law School, the conception of the National Law School, because it really brought to the fore law as a career choice for the younger students wanting to get into the professions. The very exhaustive curriculum, the very lateral sort of mind space that law school brought to the fore was by itself enough for many of us to be convinced that law was a very good career choice to make. The flip side of that was it was still a slightly sleepy place. As I said, the systems were not in place. We were finding our feet. And as much as there was a sense of excitement, there was also a great degree of uncertainty about whether we had made the right career choice and so on. In one way, for the few of us who got into litigation from those batches, as is the case now, there was a greater sense of thrill and uncertainty about joining the bar because there was a mountain to climb, there was a sense of challenge about it, and I think there was a sense of fulfillment. I've had the advantage of staying in touch with the law school. I've gone back and taught courses from time to time. I've taught a number of batches and continue to do so. And what that has convinced me is that the standard of the students is, if anything, higher than it was during my time. And that convinces me that the core of the institution is still strong, which is the student population. If there is an area where the National Law School has failed, it is in terms of engaging with the practice of the law. I say that because institutionally and individually, law school hasn't done enough to contribute to the courts, to the bar. This is where perhaps I think that the alumni can step in, at least those of us who've been in practice, to try and correct this marginal error that the National Law School, I believe, suffers from. I believe that the institution also, the National Law School, has to build a tradition of litigation now. I'm hopeful that the winds of change will blow in the National Law School. One can see that happening with the civil services and so on. Thereafter, one sees the number of students giving up other opportunities and writing those exams, breaking into the top, the cream of the UPSC and so on, I think is a terrific development. I would like to see the same sort of energy even with litigation, so that not only do the numbers increase, but even the sort of seriousness with which the law school engages with litigation increases from time to time.
Over the years, National Law School has had members of its alumni come back and teach here, as many of them would like to think, to give back to the institution what they got from it. Siddharth Chauhan and Kalyani Ramnath are recent graduates who, after having completed their master's degrees at the University of Pennsylvania and the Yale Law School respectively, have returned to teach at the National Law School. Let's find out their reasons for coming back to teach here.
I think we need to speculate about why we came back here.
Sure. So I did my teaching assistantship with Professor Elizabeth, Lizzie ma'am, which was a sort of turning point for me. And I really enjoyed it. I loved the freedom and the autonomy that classes in law school have. It's turned out wonderfully. I have no regrets about coming back to law school to teach. I had a fantastic bunch of students to teach. I think that's one thing that I've seen constant through my time here as a student as well as a faculty.
And a lot of the interventions which I'm trying to experiment with are clearly a response to what I saw as a student.
Right. But what were you trying to experiment with in the classroom?
No, so things like getting them to take on the clear perspective on issues, deliberately forcing them to confront ideas. So especially for the political theory class which I had to take, almost every class was an attempt at provoking people.
However, for an institution that has existed for 25 years at the helm of spreading legal education in India, it cannot be bereft of problems. Kunal Ambasta of the 5th year spoke to Professor V.S. Elizabeth, who has been teaching history at the National Law School for the past 19 years, to get an insight into the problems that are perceived to have crept in. Professor Elizabeth reveals her concerns about the changing culture at law school.
So, ma'am, I was watching this 1998 documentary which was made on law school, and there I saw you with Professor Anil Mitra, and you were talking as to how the first phase of law school's life was at a close then, and from 98 to 2012 now, not a lot has been written or known. So what do you think has happened in this time from 98?
The reason why people come to law school has changed, and it's a time period when there have been other changes as well. One faculty, a number of people who were there earlier, they have left, new people have come in. So that's changed the work culture, the kind of values which built law school in those first 10 years, those have changed. And also, very subtly, an orientation towards corporate law which has come in because of the reason why students are coming to law school, to get those corporate law firm jobs which are well paying. Nobody's really thinking about whether the work is good. It's more like, they're well paying jobs, and for middle class, I think the financial security is so important that that is all the focus. I think people who graduate from here, they're going to be practicing law. Either they're going to be litigators, or they're going to be judges, or they're going to be in policy making, or even just academicians. So which means that they need to understand law in context. This is an experiment. The National Law School is an experiment. Has this experiment worked? If it worked, in what areas has it worked? What has it failed in?
So one thing I think which was distinctive about law school was that our courses, when they were designed, when law school started, were not according to their utility, or perhaps they were designed for another purpose, which was that students need to know this. Students starting to learn the law need this perspective. And one course which I fondly remember from my own first year is History 1. And you took that course, and over the years, ma'am, why do you think that course is needed and required for a first year student in law school too?
At the first time I taught that course was with the 97 or 98 batch. Till then, obviously the law teachers had designed the courses, and it was a purely the kind of very traditional, conventional legal history kind of thing, which just dealt with what Warren Hastings did, or stuff like that. I'm not comfortable with that kind of history because, one, it is very boring for me to teach, and I can imagine how boring it will be to listen to it, and I didn't see the utility of it, because if there's no continuity, you're not learning about how did that impact. When I came here and I got the opportunity to design my courses. That's again the best thing about law school for a teacher is that you are designing your courses the way you want, and since you teach it and you're evaluating, you can just do what you want. So that was my, I think, third year in law school when I changed the course. And I realized that the most important thing is just that question of what is history and the question about objectivity, because what you're introducing is a philosophy of history, become absolutely relevant for a law student. Now, for a student who has entered law school in that first year, who come from, most of them do 2 years of science and then they've forgotten whatever, history, geography they've studied. And they're here doing law which has to be contextualized. And also in the context of India, where we're looking at law only, as what is there in the statutes and, precedents, we don't question the law. The problem with the legal profession in India and legal education in India is that it's positivist in its approach in teaching and practice. And from my reading and just from my doing of history itself, it is so important to ask the question, why? As a lawyer, as a judge, as a policy maker, if you don't ask that question, why, you're just not going to be able to change anything. If law is about social change, about reform, then you need to develop that capacity to ask that question. So I designed that course towards around that. History 1 is partly philosophy of history, partly it is introduction to Indian history in general, trying to give you a socio-economic perspective of the various issues we confront today, be it caste or gender, communalism, any of this. So it's trying to give the background to that, and in a sense trying to also do things which are not being done in history generally, like, at least get a little bit about what is the Northeast, who are the people in the Northeast, do they have a history of their own, or looking at things like, Christianity and Islam, how did they come in, are they outsiders really, that kind of question. So the entire thing is to have designed the course in such a way that all of them is like problematizing Indian history, problematizing history itself, and through that enabling them to problematize law, to ask this question about what is law, why is the law as it is, and more importantly to recognize that there is no one perspective in law.
One thing that I loved about History 1 was that we had always in school studied history from a very formalist perspective, where we were not taught to think, we were taught to memorize stuff and just go and write it in the papers. But how you problematize the entire concept, and when people had to grapple with issues of inclusion and to come to terms with the fact that Indian society has not been inclusive. Throughout a lot of its history it has not been, and it has been quite oppressive. And that I think was one of the greatest things that I took away from the course. And coming again to law school and on this theme of inclusivity, now law school is, I think, one of the very few public institutions in India which has an active code and a team working to make the campus safe against sexual harassment and sexual offences. And you are the policy advisor for the code to combat sexual harassment. What do you think about the necessity of this code and its effectiveness till now?
The purpose of the code, as the Supreme Court desired, is to one, let the women know that there is a law which they can access, to let the men know that sexual harassment is an offense, it's a crime, it's unacceptable. And my job has been to push forward the idea that law school has zero tolerance for sexual harassment. So there is absolutely zero tolerance on that. So we have a committee, a complaints committee, to which it can be addressed. We have the facilitators, student and faculty and other staff facilitators you can approach. The way in which we designed the code, it was a completely democratic process, a participatory democratic process, which I firmly believe in. I think it's worked. And what we've done is try and, have this orientation with the first year LLB and LLM students who come in here. So that we let them know that we have such a policy and that kind of behavior will be intolerable.
I think it just being there has been a very visible form of security for everyone, for women, for men, say for sexual minorities as well, the LGBT community. So I think it has worked, and you are perfectly right when you say this. So yeah, ma'am, thank you for agreeing to talk to us, and it was a great experience having this conversation.
My pleasure.
It's been 5 years at law school and we are passing out, and so when you look back at the journey, KP, how would you in short describe whatever these 5 years have meant to you?
I think the best summary of the last 5 years that I've heard is ironically something that I heard in my first class at law school. In my legal methods class, my very first class at law school, Professor Rahul Singh said, law school is as perfect or imperfect as the world is. And for me, that has been my experience, and that's probably the best summary of my last 5 years.
And law school, I think, has been in its own way unique to very different sets of people. What would you think is unique about National Law School?
For me, it is the flexibility of law school that I think is very unique about law school. For the large part, I think law school lets you do what you want to do.
So you think it's a it's a problem balancing things at law school given our, curriculum out here, given the trimester system?
I mean, for me, the most significant part of my law school time in terms of co-curricular activities have been spent mooting. I mooted for the first 4 years of my law school, and at least from the perspective of a mooter, I don't think that there is a necessary conflict between academics and mooting at all.
What got you interested in mooting?
For me, it was the first year orientation for mooting, where we had the opportunity to see a demo moot between two of my third years then. Then I thought that this was something I could do, and I think not just in terms of mooting, but in terms of several other activities as well. Law school does a tremendous job of really initiating you into a lot of its activities.
I personally feel that, again, you spoke about flexibility, and I think at the end of 5 years, if anything it does is it makes a person a flexible human being, because you meet people from different cultures, you meet people from different backgrounds, and somehow you learn how to accept different viewpoints. So when we speak about this culture shock, did you have one, and how did you cope?
I come from a very, very small town. In fact, so much so that I don't tell most people where I come from, because they find the name of my place absolutely hilarious. So I don't tell most people that. But I can really empathize with people who have that culture shock, but I think it is something that can be gotten over with work.
Carrying forward Krishna Prasad's point on balancing co-curriculars with academics, the National Law School provides its students with ample opportunities to pursue co-curricular and extracurricular activities of their choice. In fact, these are the activities that keep the campus vibrant. So while we have client counseling, moot court competitions, and Model United Nations conferences, we also play host to colleges from India and abroad at Spiritus, our annual sports fest, Strawberry Fields, our annual rock fest, and Ligala, our cultural and literary fest. And not to mention the conferences that go on year-round.
Parents look on his face, which I've ever seen, and poor guy, he still finished that curd rice and tried to eat.
The National Law School has various activity-based committees run exclusively by students. Just to provide you with an insight, we show a meeting of the Student Advocate Committee here.
So for the 2 volumes that we're going to bring out this year and ensure that the number of articles that we see are on par with the number that we require. So to start off with 24-1, I think we have 4 articles that we already have in hand. The first is by Justine Pira, who's a professor at Oxford. She's discussing the IPR issues. The second is by Michael Trials from Singapore International Arbitration Center. And 2 of them are book reviews. One is by Professor Siddharth Chauhan and the second is by Professor Vivek Reddy. So Kunal, why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on with Professor Martin Hunter, as well as Professor John Finnis, and about the 2 Supreme Court judges who were approached in order to write for our journal.
Legal Services Clinic is one of the activity-based committees of National Law School. I believe it is one of the best committees because it gives a student hands-on experience on dealing with clients. It has 2 core mandates. One is handling clients as in advising them, giving them legal advice, and another is spreading legal literacy. We do this through legal literacy programs in schools and through our tie-ups with NGOs. We have a very interesting format with respect to legal literacy programs. First, we perform a skit around 2-3 minutes on any legal issue that any lay person will face on a day-to-day basis, and then go on to explain to them what happened in the skit, what went wrong, and ask them questions as to how they would deal with such problems if they ever face it. And so it is done on a very interactive level, and it keeps the audience engaged, and this format has been extremely successful both with students and with different right groups wherever we have conducted them in collaboration with NGOs. And as regards legal advice, last year we handled around 48 cases, and we also have a panel of pro bono lawyers who are mostly alumni of National Law School. So we go to them whenever we have to take the cases to courts, or we find that the case itself is beyond our ability to handle. Apart from this, last year we also had this extremely interesting initiative called Putani Express, where we where we took an initiative to educate around 32 children of construction workers on our campus. Essentially, our aim was to ensure that they are able to join school and be part of the school at the level that they will be joining. And so we conducted classes for them every day for 4 hours, taught them 6 different subjects, and at the end of 1 month they are very confident, and we are confident that they will fit into the school that we got them admitted into. To end it all, I think Legal Services Clinic is one of the best activity based committees that a student can join in National Law School. It gives you an on-field experience of how to deal with clients, how to handle cases, and also be part of the entire lawyerly experience that you would otherwise not have with only textbook studies.
Law school isn't just about legal education. It's also about providing each and every student with the skills and opportunities to pursue careers even outside of the law. A few enterprising students have successfully set up an entrepreneurship cell in National Law School. We have even had students who've opened eateries in college, which have been pretty successful. So we thought we would ask the man behind Bhukad himself.
So, Arush, tell me a little bit about Bhukad.
So, Bhukad is a small food counter at NSIU, and it started in my 3rd year. Now, at that time, I always wanted to do something on my own, and I saw this opportunity where I thought that food was something which was a problem on campus. Every day we would wonder where to go, and we had become a little bored of the mess food, you know. The quality was good, but if you're given the same thing again and again, it becomes a problem sometimes. So I chanced upon this idea that, you know, why not get food to people on campus here? Create a product which is different, which people like. And there's a huge market waiting to be tapped. Let's do it.
Right. So, did you think law school provided you the right platform to do something of this sort, an entrepreneurial initiative?
So, obviously law school gives you a lot of perspective on what you do. And so I'll tell you how it started. The actual inspiration came from the fact that there were a lot of law schoolites out there who were trying to do something on their own, create something of value, do something which is different, and trying to, you know, solve a problem. Now, when I came across those people, I realized that, you know, lawyers aren't like aliens, you know, they can also do this. So that was the first thing. Second thing was the belief in myself that, you know, I was very creative, I could do something on my own. And so all of them plugged together, I realized that law school is a place which gives you that perspective, that level of ideas. It makes you meet a lot of interesting people who can encourage you to do this. And the administration was very cooperative in you know, providing me a space for doing all this. And I think my peers and my teachers and everybody just pushed, you know, me to do it, and it worked out.
National Law School has always been keen to promote research, and with that objective in mind, has established the Center for Women and the Law, Center for Child and the Law, the Center for Intellectual Property Rights and Advocacy, and the Center for Environmental Education, Research and Advocacy, amongst others.
Now, social exclusion in India not only generates tension, conflict, violence, but also it reinforces deprivation and inequality. And the Indian society is characterized by graded inequality and discrimination. With the establishment of this Center for the Study of Social Exclusion and Inclusive Policy is a definitive step towards integrating the research centers with legal education and teaching not only at NLSIU but also outside across the country. This center is expected to focus on social exclusion and discrimination related to caste, religion and ethnicity. And I'm happy to say, though it's a small group, it's a very significant group within the law school that has left behind the legacy which actually promotes and encourages this kind of critical debate and discourses.
Moving from the heavier issues in the academic block to ostensibly lighter ones, we take a sneak peek into the discussions that take place in the halls of residence.
Don't you remember when we came to law school, there were absolutely like just 2 or 3 restaurants. I mean, there was Rohini and then there was Peking China. and there was SEMA, but I don't think there was anything else. I think now many more eateries have opened up.
Even Chetta's opened inside campus. Earlier we had only the GWC cupboard, which would open only for like 10 minutes at night. We used to run there, get food.
I remember at 12 o'clock we used to run because it used to shut at 12:10 and library used to shut at 12 and there was no internet in the hostel. So all of us used to be in the library and we used to all run at 12 to buy things from there.
Yeah, I said actually getting Wi-Fi in the hostels has made such a difference to, you know, as in necessarily being in the library or working in your hostels.
That's also, I guess, there used to be fight for the desks in the library.
Yeah.
And we used to fight for plug points.
Our seniors and super seniors always tell us how like the acad was like this
lifeline of the college.
But I think earlier they were forced to go to the acad because like if they had to stop off for anything and even like doing anything online, not just studying, right, watching movies and stuff. Even the SBA library has gone through a lot of changes in our 5 years. We've seen it completely change. The common room has
The common room, the painting of the common room was such a integral part of like law school.
Now new hostels are coming up. ACAD is getting a new floor. And all the, how our 5th year classroom is now, everything is getting air conditioned, the lift is coming.
But that's a very good thing. No, the college has also become much more disability friendly like after we've come in, especially with all the ramps.
What happened in class then, Professor Hargopal?
It was a very interesting class. You know, we discussed starting from the Kosambi's critique on how the Indian society has, the general critique that it has not changed for the past 2000 years, like the Marxist critique of Asian, ascetic mode of production and all. But Kosambi has a different critique. That's what Hargopal sir was saying. That according to him, that this society hasn't changed, or the break from the past, according to Professor Hargopal, hasn't happened because in Indian setting, the Indian setting has multi-layered contradictions, okay, and it was a multi-mode society. Unlike the the Western society where you have the haves and the have-nots, here it was not this. It was like different modes of production competing at the same time, and so therefore you did not have what is known as a linear synthesis. A whole new levels of synthesis arise, and they compete amongst each other, and therefore,
So you heard what happened in North Carolina?
Yeah, there's something in news.
Yeah. So basically what happened was that there was a referendum to amend the constitution of the state. And it seems 61% of the state's population feel that marriage should be defined as being only between a man and a woman. So with the referendum being passed, the constitution stands amended, and same-sex marriage is illegal, is unconstitutional basically in that state now. But how it can become controversial is what happened in California was that a similar referendum was held, a similar result was also reached, and that was called the Proposition 8. And what happened subsequently was that the federal court struck down that amendment to the constitution, and it has restored same-sex marriage there. So basically now with all these cases and several other states also lining up to have several such referendums or plebiscites, it will reach the Supreme Court of the United States, and let's see what happens there.
The forums of discussion might have changed. The spirit has not.
And I also heard that the seniors of this college funded this particular festival. Big thumbs up to them. That's like amazing sense of belonging. And thanks for standing up for your own alma mater. Everybody loudly.